I will kindly request you to give us from your experience in the Nairobi chapter, which laws which laws do you think are absent that affect widows seeking redress in Kenya? That would be the question I would want you to answer. And if possible, if you could take less than 5 minutes, it would be in order. And I'll introduce my panelists have been introduced. Masterly works at the Kenya Land Alliance, which is an institution that deals in issues governing land with the main aim of ensuring that the landlords that are in place speak to the needs of the Kenyans. Then we have a deed from KCHR. KCHR is the government watchdog. They monitor and investigate alleged human rights violations. Then we have Tracy. Tracy works for FIDA. FIDA is an organization that champions women's rights and defends and protects them in their day-to-day working. So the really take us home.
Thank you. My name is Irene Kimani, County Commissioner for Widows, and I come together with several partners. So, most of the challenges that widows go through in our country, one is law enforcement and implementation of the already existing laws. For instance, we realize that in Nairobi County we have like 800,000 widows. The last time we did in our database, and when you interact with them, most of the widows will tell you that when they go to seek the letters of administration, that is from the chief, they will part from between 500 to 10,000 Kenya shillings. So basically, and now they're starting their succession. They have not even gathered the courage to look for a lawyer. So that one starts discouraging them because even they are struggling economically. And that is about 3/4 of the widows. So from there, when the widow struggles to get that letter of administration, maybe she gets a loan or gets a corpus from a chama and gets the letter from the chief. Now she's here starting to look for a lawyer. And all of you know that lawyers are not cheap in Kenya. Sometimes even the amount that they give you, they even short because you wonder how you're going to raise that amount of money. Then the other thing is that we have the corridor lawyers. That is what we call them at the grassroots. These lawyers are the ones who operate with a file in a certain corridor. And we have a stamp. You take your documents, they stamp them, and tell you that they are going to do your case. Maybe now a lawyer will go sell a cow, go pay the corridor lawyer, and from there, she'll never hear from the lawyer.
That we will face in regards to securing land and property rights, and how do we state and state actors together in the community can do to ensure that we get the best practices and particularly the most vulnerable women.
Okay, thank you very much. And from Kenya Land Alliance, I think the barriers that widows face mostly are the cultural barriers, as my colleague has mentioned. Women are only forced to look at the burden of rights from an aspect of access and use and not ownership and management, and that's an issue that arises from land being seen as a male-owned asset as opposed to a family-owned asset. Another issue that women face is lack of knowledge of documentation. Some of these videos don't even know the type of documentation that are required to own land or any type of ownership. So that is an issue that these videos face from the community level. Finally, as many speakers have alluded to this morning, the process of That means that you find that generations and generations have died before the succession process has begun. And that causes an issue because now these people are living in land that is registered to someone who died like 20, 30 years ago. It becomes a bottleneck because you cannot access the documents to start or even begin the succession processes. And most of the time the family has been disposed of the land. So this disinherits and contributes to the disinheritance of women. How CSOs can partner, I think, is working together because a key problem that I've noticed with CSOs is the working cycles. So we have very many interventions that we do, but we do them in silos, and therefore we dislocate the interventions across the same community. So I think we should partner with the state organs to work and amalgamate the data that we have collected so that we are able to assist these women. So that is one of the things that I think will benefit them to this. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Pepela, do you think there's need to create sanctions for non-compliance with laws on succession? And is there a need to create a special unit in the government to handle issues of widowed persons?
Thank you very much. Compartmentalizing things sometimes they don't work. The main issue is enforcement. If you do not obey the court order, the court has an avenue or a method of ensuring that you obey. There are mechanisms that are already in place. One can go back for contact. One can, of course, also sue for the damages that may occur because of non-compliance. So impunity, generally, if I may use that word, has an already existing remedy. So we do not need to create another layer of ensuring compliance. What should simply happen is to get proper leadership in our way of doing things. If a court order has been issued to a police officer or a police station, it has to be enforced. If it has been issued against you and you don't obey, then sanctions must be visited at home. The next question that you have asked
do you think there's a need to create a special unit in government to deal with widowed persons in Kenya?
Widowed persons in Kenya, of course, is a vulnerable category of persons. It's a good idea because administratively it may improve, may provide efficiency, it may also promote inclusion, accountability, name everything that comes with good governance. Because if we have one for children, we have another one now that we are soon creating, and I'm sure you'll be seeing soon on older persons. Because there's a bill on older persons that is at an advanced stage. Then we have another one that is coming on social protection, which I believe widows should be under that particular legislation. Unfortunately, the bill has already gone through the third reading, so we may not do much, but I would have really loved to have seen this workshop come last week so that we would have put it in. But now we will find a way, but it is, social protection is where the category of widows can anchor very well and, of course, create an office in a relevant ministry. I don't know whether it will be in the Office of Gender, Ministry of Gender, or close to Ministry of Labor. When it comes to widows, personally, I think it should go in the Ministry of Labor for reasons best known to ourselves. Now, you asked me also, based on what you sent me, on the gaps and the challenges. I will say that, and many have already alluded to this, the cultural barriers, the cultural Kenya and Africa for that matter is so patriarchal to the extent that women are looked at as, especially our mothers in our community where I come from, wanasema wa kukuja. So anaenda, but the children remain. So for me, the best way, we have enough laws, we have enough policies, we have a very strong policy, especially on widows and on the National Policy on Family Promotion and Protection. It's very strong. I feel we should now look at how do we make these fathers, including myself, to understand that you can die. And if you die, your children will suffer. So put structures, put protective structures in place before you die. Because you can die tomorrow. You can be knocked by a car, about a border, and you die. What will happen to your family? So that at the back of our mind, we have this thing that lingers on us all the time, and we always make sure that if something happens to me tomorrow or today, my family, I will not stand in my grave as my grandfather used to say, that my children or my wife that I left behind is suffering. I'll use a practical example. I happen to have been my grandfather's most trusted human being. And when he was getting a bit, frail because of illness, he called me and said, if I don't put in place, tell me, should I do a will or should I divide this land as I'm alive? And I want to divide it with our twin, our because he said he had 5 wives and he had 7 sons. So he said, if I don't divide this land, these fellows will kill each other. So one morning, I don't want to say he lied, but he talked to one of my aunties to host a meeting, which he funded for a party which is far away. So everybody went. Then he called me with a surveyor. And we surveyed the entire land. And we subdivided to the level of equity. What he called as his most useless land. We'll have finding as the level. He gave him more land. The one who was better off, he gave him less. I don't know why he did that, but everybody got a piece. And then he told me to prepare the titles and stay with them until the day I would die. So I stayed with the 7 titles. When he died, on the 3rd day, when we lawyers do something, those who are professors, they know, I was called by the clan leader and he told me, I was told that you have something. So my uncles were really preparing now for succession. But I had the titles. So I came and said, there will be no succession. What will happen is, each one of you will repair a need. And they asked me, when was this done? I think it was done 5 years ago. And they could see the title after 5 years ago. They had no objection. Each one took Nakanyamaka Kimi, our family. Now I was assuming if we didn't have such a process in place, we would still be in court today fighting for each one of we are now in the party logo, you go for objection. Therefore, if we can start serious conversations around the future of your family when you get married, we, the men, target us, yes, because we are targeting women. And when women come to ask our fathers, or even myself, I feel like I want to kill you. I start fearing, why do you want me to do this? But I'm sure if I ask my wife will accept, because she knows I take care of the children. So if we can target our normal hour in our awareness, I'm sure we'll have a very serious change in the dynamics of society.
Thank you, Martin. To react to what you have just said, when the national language was coming up with this policy, one of the proposals that the Commission gave was that whenever a child is born in a family, we do have a particular counter at the National Land Commission where the child's name is taken, so that from there you can have a database of the land owned by that person. So immediately at birth, from birth, we know that Mr. Pepela has 10 children or 2 children, so that in the eventuality of death, none of them misses out because of the unfairness that is surrounding issues of succession. But it was just a suggestion.
I'd like us to clarify that it was for community land. Community land interests. Because community land interests, the title deed is one, and it is given to the community. So the community is a group of people, and this group of people may actually have their own understanding of how this community land will be administered. Therefore, for you to be recognized as part of that community, it was important that a father or a mother shares with the National Land Commission, because it's the one that keeps the register of community land. I hope I've clarified that.
Thank you. So to trace it, and in the interest of time as we have guided, I have 2 questions. What do you think are the biggest bottlenecks that hinder women from accessing justice when it comes to issues of accessing their rights? And what policy reforms you suggest to unblock them? Then lastly, do you think it's possible to bridge the gap between civil and customary law in the context of bringing a harmony in order to eliminate the persistent discriminatory practices?
Okay, thank you. So, the first thing that I would say is the same as I'm going to do throughout today, that the first bottleneck would be the dominance of cultural practices and customary law. So with this being there, it's very difficult for the widow or widower to access justice. The other thing that would be there is most of these widows lack knowledge of their rights. They don't know what rights are for them and what they should do once they are in a situation where they need to access these rights. So lack of the knowledge of the rights is a challenge to them accessing justice. The other thing would be intimidation from the widows and the family members. More often than not, the widow is in a land that belongs to the husband's family. So they are either intimidated or coerced into not taking any action. So by this, some choose to even just leave their home for their safety and for the safety of their children, and some stay there and violence is perpetrated against them. So intimidation and threats and coercion is a hindrance to them accessing justice. The other one I would say is the members of the community, especially the chiefs. Before succession matter begins, the chief is better, but sometimes the chief has already been influenced by the other side of the family, or this even chief is one of their brothers or uncles or grandfather. And if that is the case, it means this widow will not be able to access justice in that place. And I wish that the Ombudsman office was here, because in our legal aid, we've always been referring these widows to the Ombudsman because the chiefs have refused to write the beneficiaries letter. So if the Ombudsman was here, it would be important for them to know and understand the challenges that these widows face in their trying to access justice. So some of the policy reforms that can be done, I would say, I don't think we need a standalone document of its own. I think the existing bills that are already
to work for the benefit of the widows and the widowers. Creating another law or policy, we are going to go back in circles, because if the ones that we already have are not being enforced, then what are we saying in the long run? So and I also think that it's important to always do mitigation as a form of advocacy as well. For example, in the reports case that has been mentioned here, where we were acting as interested parties, that so the sections in the Laws of Succession Act being deemed unconstitutional of the 35, 36, and 39. So it is important to mitigate some of these issues in the public eye, so that it is aware and people are aware of the same. The other one would be to sort of conduct consistent legal aids, again to create awareness on their rights and the referral mechanisms that are in place from different stakeholders for them to be able to access their rights and realize their rights in the end of it all. It's also important to work with institutions that and key participants of this whole process. That will be the chiefs. We need to work with the judiciary. We also need to make reference to regional domestic cases that have actually dealt with such cases where inheritance is an issue, maybe to girls or to children or to widows. So I think that can be used to help in this area. I forgot your last question.
The last one, which you have answered, was is it possible to do the gap between customary and physical law to create a harmony?
I think it's possible to create a harmony. However, this part of the Constitution, where the Constitution does give the right to use customary law. However, there is a repugnant clause where it is not in contention with morality and it does not discriminate against anyone. So I think it's possible. Not sure how effective, but it is possible, because for me, customary law and statutory law are certainly in line, and it's always important to remember that in as much as we have the law, we also have a clause that protects the marginalized people. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And these are the letters for this session. I think we have more time for. Okay, so with that, do you take questions? Okay. With that, I would like to thank you for being patient with us. We have done our best to speak in English, right? Simujibu. Yeah. So with that, let me give them a round of applause as they.
Please let's give them a round of applause.